Good evening and welcome to the FE Bar. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we finally got this show on the road. My name, the host, is Jack George Maynard, as it says on the screen there. And we will be reacting to the Mexican E-Prix, which was won by Pascal Wehrlein. We'll be talking about him and does he have the consistency needed to win a championship this season. Later on, we'll be talking about Attack Charge. It wasn't even tested in Mexico. What a shambles by Formula E. Is it even worth being brought in Misano? We'll be talking about all of that and much more later on. Mr. Pickering, what a jacket. Let's just start with the jacket, right? Let's start with the jacket. What a jacket. I'm just in a jumper, casual, and I love it.
Well, I thought, this is the first time that we've done like a proper live thing. I should spice it up and wear this. I bought this for £3 in a charity shop in Swanage. Don't get too excited, everyone. But this is super exciting and ready to talk about Mexico. Yeah,
this is your show. Effectively, this is your show. And it's really cool at the moment to see a couple of people already in the waiting room, ready to get on and have their say. So if you're not in the waiting room and if you're in our Discord, you can join our Discord. There is a link in the description in the YouTube page. Join our Discord, get in the waiting room, and we want to hear from you. The whole point of this show is for us to interact with you, for you to tell us your opinions on Formula E and the race. And that's what we're going to start with, right? We're going to start with the Mexico E-Prix, because obviously that was the first race of the season, and it was won by Mr. Pascal Wehrlein. Now, were we supposed to be surprised? Although I think I was pleasantly surprised, maybe by qualifying when Pico, because the Porsches didn't do that great, right? It didn't do that great at all in terms of Dennis struggled, although I think Dennis would have made it to the Jules. Norman Nato didn't get anywhere, and Da Costa as well, just struggling. What was your thoughts on Pascal Wehrlein? Because, it wasn't the greatest, it wasn't a classic race, but fair play to Pascal.
I think in terms of qualifying, like going through each session, it wasn't too much of a surprise that Porsche weren't there or thereabout. Obviously, we saw a lot of it last season that Porsche didn't qualify well and then did better in the race. But the big expectation was Jaguar. Jaguar were quick, straight out of the gates in session one into FP2 as well, and they were odds on for qualifying. We were expecting that it might even be a front row lockout, the two Jaguar TCS cars. Even though they wouldn't have started from that position because they had a penalty from the day before. Pascal absolutely smashed it out of the park this weekend. I smashed it out of the park because I predicted Pascal Wehrlein in the FEZ show last week. So, I'm delighted that that's paid off.
Yeah, something that really shocked me, I think, from watching qualifying, going back to qualifying quietly, it was the 350 kilowatt laps. Like, between the 300 kilowatts and the 350, the drivers actually weren't going that much faster, which I found quite interesting. It was about 2 tenths. Did that shock you in any way?
Yeah, it seemed like the times were a lot slower than last year, which was a bit of a surprise. I know that there was a little bit of a surface change from this year to last when they were coming out of the forest. So also just need to say thank you, Saz, for the comment on the jacket. I'm not sure if that played a part. I know that was partly to do with Robin Friends' elimination from the race, but it was definitely interesting considering that the software, obviously the hardware stays the same from season 9 to season 10, but the software we were expecting a little bit more. We were expecting a couple of tenths quicker, not a couple of tenths slower.
No, exactly. I think we all thought with the software and advancements that lap times would generally be quicker, so it might have been just track conditions and so forth. But Sebastian Buemi said something really interesting after the race, is that he said that he was waiting. He knew Wehrlein had this investigation, which took 4 hours, by the way, to sort out, which is crazy.
Typical Formula
E. But he said, I didn't try to overtake Pascal Wehrlein because I knew he could get a penalty and I could win the race that way. That mind boggles me that he's made this decision in the car that I'm not going to overtake him. I'm going to sit behind him and not challenge. Although, to be fair, though, he did make that mistake a little bit later in which was not seen by the cameras, but I spotted it straight away on the live timing feed where he dropped about a second and a half, so it was 2.5 seconds, and I think that made Pascal's race much easier. But the mindset was, I'm not going to overtake him. He could get a penalty later.
Yeah, that's not really much of a racing mindset. We know that in Formula E, especially in this generation of cars, that sitting behind one another is a lot more beneficial than being the one who's got the clean air out in front, because you can save energy. But even then, it was an interesting tactic from Sebuemi to do that. And well, we knew halfway through the race that Norman Nato had been cleared of this infraction, because all 4 Porsches were under investigation. Da Costa was already out. Nato got cleared halfway through the race, but Dennis and Wehrlein, they didn't get cleared until a few hours after. So I would have thought after Nato was cleared, you sort of had a thought in terms of, okay, it's either they've done something very bad or they just need to just have like a little quick check after the race. Yeah. Turns out a quick check takes 4 hours.
Yeah, quick check takes 4. So basically it was a traction control. Basically it was a form of potential traction control with a pedal map system. We won't bore you too much with the details, but effectively that was what he was investigating for, to see if they had some form of traction control. Because the interesting thing is with the software that these cars have is that they can, basically add these things in or make the car pretend like it has a traction control just so they get a better launch, which is really interesting and also super sophisticated. So love to hear from a potential like Sylvain Filippi or Roger Griffiths in the future to find out exactly what goes underneath the software and actually really understanding it, because we are in this 2-year cycle. And I suppose the last thing before we start thinking about taking calls and so forth and starting getting you guys involved in the show, in terms of this 2-year cycle, because we know it's about saving money, right? And maybe we can talk about this a little bit later, but do you think just generally in terms of maybe what people can come on and say about the 2-year cycle, like I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say, because surely from a financial point it makes sense, right? They save money, they don't have to build hardware every year, but then going into a season we know what's going to happen technically. We know Porsche and Jaguar should be at the front and potentially a close-up. Is that what we want? Is that what drivers want? Because, we've already seen Roland jump ship from Mahindra because he's like, oh, no, I ain't staying here for 2 years. So, there's pros and cons.
Yeah, the 2-year cycle, it was introduced because of the COVID pandemic. And so that was Formula E's initiative to sort of keep costs down during that period of time. I'm personally not a fan of it. I think that like each season should have its own powertrain and everything. But this is what they've introduced. Yes, it's a little bit more interesting to see what developments they can do just on the software. But the thing is, I know that we've had manufacturers drop out in the past because Formula E, there isn't enough development in Formula E. And that's why we lost Mercedes. That's why we lost BMW. That's why we lost Audi. And so, yeah, I honestly, I'd love for them to return to just the 1-year format and maybe let them explore a little bit more underneath the chassis, because that's all they can really do.
Yeah, for sure. And then I want to talk Mitch Evans very quickly. Was nowhere in the race, quoting steering issues with his Jaguar, which was kind of a surprise because when we saw both Jags in the semi-final, it wasn't a surprise to me that Nick Cassidy got knocked out, but I thought Mitch Evans would go through to the final, but alas he didn't. Nick Cassidy, I was watching his Sector 2 times, he wasn't strong in Sector 2. If it wasn't for Van Dorn making a mistake in that first, in the quarterfinals, Nick Cassidy would have been out. It was not a good time whatsoever, so I wasn't surprised because Nick Cassidy again was quick in the first and final sector, but the middle sector he was about 3 tenths off what the others could do, so I wasn't surprised he went out. But when Mitch Evans went out, I thought, okay, he might pose a challenge here. The Jaguars might pose a challenge going forward, but it just wasn't the case for Evans.
Pressure of the duels in the end, you only get 1 lap to prove you might in the duels, and it didn't work out for either Jaguar. They messed up on their laps, and so neither of them were going to start on pole position anyways. As I said earlier, they had a 1-place penalty for the red flag infraction in free practice 1. It wasn't going to work out. But I mean, we knew that Jaguar were always going to be up there. I said in the FPZ show last week, if Jaguar don't win the title this year, I think it's a bit of a failure on their behalf, purely because they've signed Nick Cassidy, who was on par with Mitch last season. So and and we've seen with Nick, he got a podium in his first race, which is fantastic for him, fantastic for the team, and I think they're just 1 point behind Porsche in the championship because Wehrlein got the pole as well, which means that Wehrlein and Porsche are at the top of the championship.
Yeah, and then lastly for me, I suppose my man, so if anyone who's watched any FEZ shows, Maximilian Gunther, has Maserati, have they made the biggest step forward? I think it's a bit maybe too early to tell if they have, but Maximilian Gunther, yes, he started the weekend in the wall, and I was like, Max, please, get yourself together, stop crashing every 5 seconds. And you can kind of tell when it was annoying having James Rossiter there, because I felt bad for Max, because obviously James was like, oh yeah, he did this last season, but if he's super quick, then he can put something together. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want from Max in terms of, because I fully believe he's such a strong driver, and I think he put that setback behind him and it had such a stellar race, and if it wasn't for the safety car, could have easily finished third.
Yeah, I think he would. It was just that he hadn't taken the Satmo, whereas Nick Cassidy had, and so that meant that he lost the podium in the end. It's a stellar start for the year for Max, especially if you think about it. He didn't score points until Berlin last season, and then he went on a fantastic run on form from there on out, and scored, I think, either the most amount of points from Berlin onwards or easily top 3, because he was just stunning from there on out. And so it's a strong start for the champion for a championship charge for him. Whether we see him fight for the championship going all the way down to London is a completely different thing. But yeah, we'll have to see. But I do think that Max has made a step, Maserati's made a step, DS has made a step. So yeah, we'll see.
Now, I couldn't believe what I saw. Now, obviously, I found something on the internet, Jack, and this is always a disastrous thing, but actually I've
seen this on Top
Gear. Yeah, I know.
I don't think it's broadcastable.
I found someone posted something on Twitter, and because obviously it happened in London, and you can tell that it was in London, but someone posted it and people were saying this, and I thought I have to show this on the FE bar because I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure a lot of you in chat probably haven't seen it either. So Pico, watch this. This is hilarious about Pascal Wehrlein. I think it's hilarious. I think it is absolutely hilarious. You've got Pascal Wehrlein. They've got the Freed from Desire song for Pascal Wehrlein, and it was in London because obviously we were in London, so we don't really catch what comes up. And during, when you're watching as a fan, and I saw that on Twitter, and people going, Wehrlein's on fire. So it got me thinking. If any one of you guys listening likes football and has got a football chant for a Formula E driver, I'd love to hear them, right? I'd love to hear them. I can see Fiercely Electric in chat says I have nightmares about this video, and I was like, it was brilliant. I was like, when it was not brilliant, it's a bit cheesy, right? But at the same time, I was like, can you imagine that they started playing that? Right, and you know what else? What I thought was really funny was watching the presenter in the screen, and anyway, she's going like this, and I was like,
I noticed that. I noticed.
I was in stitches.
The thing is, I'm a fan of cheese. You know I am. You know I adore the Eurovision Song Contest. But even then, I was sort of wincing through that. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. Nick said it in chat. Like, everyone, they just need a victory song. Can you imagine? I think I wrote one. I wrote one for Dan Ticktum, right?
Nick, I think that's called the national anthems.
I've written one. I can't get it up at the moment because it's on Discord. But I wrote one. I think if I remember it was about Dan Ticktum, actually. It was about, because I thought, I have to have a go then at writing my own. Based off, there's a swear word in the song, but I've had to bleep the swear word out because obviously we can't swear.
Brace yourself, everyone.
Yeah, brace yourself. But
We're in for a long night.
I think it's Dan Ticktum's magic. He wears a magic hat. And if you force him off the road, he'll come and smash you up. He overtakes on the inside. He overtakes on the outside. And when he wins the championship, we'll sing this song all night. Oh, Dan Ticktum's magic. It's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I think we should get a football's chant for everyone.
You know what? I think that was fine, apart from that there was one line where you shoved about
That's the song, though.
like 6 syllables extra into a line. Like
That's the song.
that was the problem.
Oh, right.
It felt a little bit like Love Actually. They sing they changed Love to Christmas and it doesn't fit. It's that. That's what you've done.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff, though. But I honestly say, anyone wants to come on at some point, make up a song for a Formula E driver. I'd love to hear him. I'd love to hear it. Right. I think we should take our first call of the night. Because this is what this is. This is a fan engagement show. This is where you come on. Right,
we've been waffling for 15 minutes.
Which was
part of
the plan. So I think we've got a Chris in the waiting room. Let's bring Chris in.
Yeah, let's bring Chris in. Here we go. Hello, Chris. You're on air. Please do not swear.
Yep, you're currently muted. If he's muted, which is not great. Hopefully he realizes. There we go. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Very good. So. Talk about the race then. What was your thoughts on the Mexico City E-Prix?
I think.
Come on, Chris. You've had ages to plan for this.
It wasn't the best race, was it? I mean.
No, it wasn't a classic.
I prefer it to a Portland. I prefer it to a. I'm trying to think. What was the other races last year? That were awful.
Let me get. Berlin was borderline.
Wehrlein was bad. I didn't like Cape Town. Oh, Sao Paulo was awful.
So half the season was.
We saw, Sao Paulo was like the first time that we really saw this like slipstreaming race. I didn't mind it then. I didn't mind it round 1 in Berlin. Round 2 in Berlin, I was pretty sick of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's better than all them races, but I mean I think Gen 3 in general's not the best for racing, because like even in those races, the end of it is just that there's no overtaking at the end. Once they're all in position, once they go, you don't see an overtake last 5 laps.
Do you think that's anything to do with like the tracks and so forth? Do you think that's
I don't think it's the tracks, because like you compare it to Gen 2. Gen 2, you could still overtake it. It seems like I don't know if there's not enough grip in the cars or whatever. Or the cars, I don't know.
Well, they said the Hankook tyres were
I'm not a mechanic.
Yeah, of course. But they did say the Hankook tyres were a bit hard to get in the right window, and the drivers did struggle with the Hankook tyres. So, and obviously we might be moving away from Hankook in the future, but to Bridgestone potentially. But that could be part of the issue.
But yeah, I mean, you think back to Mexico 2 years ago, when Gen 2, when it was the Porsche 1-2. There's tons of overtakes that race.
Yeah.
So it's not the tracks at Gen 3 is defo. I think Gen 3 is a massive step backwards, to be honest. I mean, you either get a race like Mexico where nothing happens, or you get a race like Portland where you don't know what's happening.
No, it's true. It's annoying, I think, and maybe Pico might agree. It's like I think it's annoying that we haven't fully utilised Gen 3 yet, and I think that's what we get on to in the second half of the show with Attack Charge, because obviously it's been delayed to Misano. Do you think once Attack Charge comes into effect, do you think the racing might be a bit different? Do you think we might see some overtaking, or do you think it will still be a bit more status quo that we've got now?
I think it'll be more like the Mexico races. I think the Portland races will stop, which I'm all for. But you'll see more races like Mexico was. If you get like better tracks, like Berlin might be decent enough.
We've got a new version this year as well.
Oh, have we?
Yeah.
Yep. Another new track. Was there anyone? Was there anyone in the race that sort of surprised you? Anyone that caught your eye? Thought, I wasn't expecting a result. Or did anyone do a bit badly than you thought? Were you a bit surprised by the Jaguars? Maybe not being at the front or not getting pole?
I thought Evans would win the race after practice. I thought he had the pace. I thought Hughes had a very good weekend, actually gone under the radar a bit. He did well.
Made sure he finished FP1 fastest.
Apart from Dennis da Costa ranks, I reckon everyone was where he expected them to be, or in and around it. Apart maybe Gunter as well.
Yeah.
was a bit higher.
Do you,
But
in,
gone to
in,
Ascot a few races like that.
in terms of being a fan, Chris, in terms of the 2 year cycle, knowing that we're expecting the same sort of racing or the same sort of order this season, does that bother you much, or does it not bother you, or would you prefer them to build a new powertrain every season so we get a bit of difference?
I don't mind that either way, to be fair. I mean, I think I don't mind a certain because the championship is, and the racing is actual racing rather than, I don't know, made up racing. Because I just don't class like races like Portland an actual race.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
it was.
potluck.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we'll talk about the overtakes. I don't think there were many overtakes, but I reckon Formula E would say there was about 40, 50 plus overtakes in that race. And when you think back to it, you probably go, probably not. But then when you've got Frines going back, you've got all the attack charge,
Yeah.
not attack charge,
No,
the attack mode.
no. Frines going back doesn't count because that was on first lap, and first laps don't count in the official.
But what about
overtake.
what I mean when Frines crashed? So all the people who went past Frines when he crashed,
I don't think. Well,
and then you've got all the
all
attack
four of them,
mode
still,
changes. I reckon that might
yeah.
count. Don't know.
I think they
Don't
said,
know.
I think
the attack mode does. The attack mode does.
But they're not overtakes, are they?
I'm not sure about the crashes.
That's
I saw a
They
tweet.
technically are. That's the thing.
Sorry, Chris.
I saw a tweet that said there was 3 overtakes in that race.
Yeah, I saw that tweet as well. But then at the same
It was
time, I
fine.
I
don't
don't know
think
if it was a.
don't think
I don't know
Formula
if
E
it was
will tell
close,
you there
but-
was 3 overtakes. I think they'll tell you there was about 30 overtakes in that race.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think overtake. You can't fixate on the amount of overtakes because that's not the only thing. Like if there was, let's say Buemi was right behind Wehrlein the whole race, even if he didn't overtake him, it would have been interesting because you'd been on your seat. He just was like, there's no chance of an overtake anywhere here.
Yeah, no.
I didn't have the feeling where anyone was gonna be close to an overtake. Maybe Vern was the only one of Evans I can think of.
Yeah, but at the same time, Vern, it was a bit like what Vern did to Nick Cassidy in Hyderabad last year, where Cass had 4 or 5% more power, but it was at that point in the race where it didn't matter at all. So Nick couldn't make any head of it. So Jev won.
So that's the thing with the. I mean, Mexico isn't this type of race, but the Portland races, they just save all the energy and then they've got 5 laps of flat out racing. And flat out racing in these Gen 3 cars, there's no chance of an overtake unless there's a mistake.
Yeah. So last thing to talk about then, I suppose, Chris, is then Diriyah. Do you expect Diriyah is normally quite a busy race in Formula E, and especially the turn just before the attack mode, there's normally a lot of overtaking there. So do you expect to see a better race in Diriyah, do you reckon, than what we saw in Mexico?
I think it'll depend on qualifying. I think the Jags and Porsches and the DS ones are a step clear of the rest. And possibly Nissan, to be fair, they can compete. But I think the reason why Diriyah was so good last year, well, I say so good, was one of the better races was because the Porsche had that much of an advantage where they just steamed through the pack.
Yeah.
They don't have the same advantage this year.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting.
Not that it's the same level.
Diriyah will definitely be interesting. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being our first caller.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. See you later. Thank you. There we go, Pico. Our first caller. In the books. That's it. Many more, and you guys can be the same. As I said, if you're in our Discord, as I said, the link is in the description. You can come join the waiting room. What we are going to do now, we're just going to take a brief break, give yourself a quick chance to jump into Discord. We've got one more caller in the waiting room, and we will hear from them after this break. We will see you in a moment. And hello, we are back. So, thank you for a break. It was just important, gets people a chance to get into the waiting room to come in. We do have someone who's actually quite well known to us in the waiting room, in Joshua Birch, commentator. Joshua Birch has his own YouTube channel. We're gonna get him in and get his thoughts on the race. Joshua, are you there?
I am. Hello, you all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Hello, hello. Welcome to the FE Bar.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you both. Nice jacket, by the way, Pika. I mean, you
yeah,
saved over £3.
Yeah,
Can you give me the name of it?
I can't remember where I got it from. It was somewhere in Swanage. But no. How are you? How was your Mexico E-Prix? Because we know that you do your own commentary for it. So how did you find it?
It was a weird day, really, to be back in after not doing anything in December and sort of taking a little break from everything. It was weird being back, but I actually enjoyed the whole procedure. I mean, I get in a strange thing. Me and Ed Hunter were talking about it. I get in a strange thing in the commentary where I'm so hyped up and psyched to get going. I'm just bouncing around the room like I've had too much sugar. But looking back on the race, you can see where there was problems. But during it, I thought it was actually quite good. Then the safety car happened, and Robbins Friends decided that he wanted to block the track. And I thought for a split second we might have to have a red flag. And they were, luckily enough, there was an exit where they could drag the car off. But then they had to drag it through, and all the debris that came off, and they had to clean it up. We lost a lot of time under that as well. It was a bit of a mess. And I put it down, mainly what I take away from the first weekend was great racing's back, but boy, oh boy, was it rusty. They've got a lot to catch up on and make it a lot smoother.
So what do you mean by, like, rusty? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, expand a bit more.
Well, I thought the race direction was very rusty. The whole procedure with the full course yellow coming out and then going to safety car about 3 minutes later, I thought that was a bit bizarre because it should have been a safety car straight away, because then they could have backed the pack up quicker, and we could have had, instead of 6 minutes 38 on the safety car, we could have had it less than 5. They just messed around with it a bit too long. The TV direction, in my book as well, felt a little bit out of place. I thought Aurora did their usual okay job at directing the actual sessions and the World Free coverage on that, but Whisper Films, I thought their first production on Formula E, it felt very disjointed. There was a few bits that I was looking at in the pre-show where presenters were still hanging around and checking scripts, and some of them adjusting equipment, scratching noses, and one of them I even noticed as well was swapping mics. And it's like, you don't do that on a broadcast. You communicate with your gallery a bit more. I thought some of the presenters were better than others, to put it nicely. And some of them as well need time to grow into the sport. But it just felt very much like it was rusty, amateur hour, but there's foundations to grow on. And with the whole Gen 3 problem as well, you were discussing on the last call as well about how it was all a bit weird with the Generation 3 car not performing again in good races. I'd argue that last year we did have some great races. I know, Jack Giamatti, you do not like Portland.
Yeah, I don't like Portland. Portland was why this show was born.
Yeah,
because it was so Marmite, Portland, that I thought, imagine if there was a show where fans could come on and have their say, and then here we are today. So when we get to Portland and it is the same race, it'll be an interesting one, hopefully.
No, I loved Portland for one reason. That it was 11 o'clock at night and I was bouncing around the commentary box like crazy, trying to keep up with everything. But I thought, I've been racking my brains for the last 2 days. Would a tack charge make a difference to what we saw in Mexico? Because they were having to save energy in some parts of the race. And I thought, would the extra, it's 4 kilowatts, would it make a difference? And I can't think it would, because the layout of Mexico, the current one, doesn't work. I don't like it. Ever since they changed it, it doesn't work. I think what we need is the first version of this track we had, where we had both ovals connected then with the Forest Soul section. I think that's a nice little short track racing, which could give us some overtakes. And hopefully they adjust it going forward. But I don't know. I'm slightly worried that the tracks, some of the street tracks, aren't good enough for how fast these cars are. And I'm worried that the regen issues are still there. It's all still very much undiscovered country.
Yeah, I want to go back to your point actually that you made about the TV coverage, right? Because the TV coverage is quite a big thing, and I think it's been an issue for a number of years. Because same with Channel 4, Channel 5, whoever's had it in the UK, and I suppose another country other than possibly Germany, because I know Germany and maybe in other countries, I think maybe America too, might have their own commentary and their own presenting team. But if they're just taking the welfare effectively, you know, Jermaine Genius and the crew at TNT Sports is effectively not TNT Sports, right? It's not. It's the world feed. So basically what has happened is, and the BBC did this, Channel 4 did this, Channel 5 did this, everyone did this, right, in the UK. They stole the world feed. So therefore, when they do these ads and people are complaining about the ads are just disjointed, yes, that's because it's not their own coverage. It's not Sky F1. Sky F1 is their own coverage, right? And for me, I think that's why there's such this... It's poor, because you've got TNT Sports, which you're paying, right? So someone is paying £30 a month to watch a disjointed show because TNT Sports aren't actually got their own presenters, don't actually have their own commentary crew, don't actually... You know, TNT Sports could run it as a world feed, because David Croft and Martin Brundle also do the world feed as well on race days for F1. Did they not?
No, they don't.
Oh, I thought I hear them in the...
F1
not anymore.
Live do their own thing.
Oh, they do their own thing. Once upon a time, you'd hear the F1 highlights and it would be them. But, like, you knew it was they were the world feed, because they would stop and ITV would cut, and then a couple of seconds later they would continue talking again, and then they would stop because ITV have come back and back in the day, and then therefore they move on. But there's none of that. I think that's the main issue, I think, with the TV coverage.
I will say with the ad breaks in the race coverage, I thought with the brake bumpers, everything was handled exceptionally well. With qualifying again, we only missed like half a minute of Group B, so it wasn't the end of the world. But even then, when they threw back to Group B, the first line was Tom Brooks thanking JJ for his coverage. So they didn't watch the first. So even on the world feed, if you watched an uninterrupted coverage, they missed the first 30 seconds of Group B. You don't really need to watch the first 30 seconds of Group B. It's 11 cars trundling out the pit lane. It's nothing in particular. So the one that I believe most people had the issue with was Free Practice 2, where there was a ad break in that session, which for me isn't on. The entire broadcast, 45 minutes, 5 minutes on before, 30-minute practice session, 10 minutes off air. It's shorter than a half of Champions League football or Premier League. You don't need to put an ad break in it. And also with the other main motorsport that they do on TNT Sport, MotoGP, they show every single lap uninterrupted. So my issue was with practice. I think qualifying and the race were actually somewhat all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to the point where we do not... We F1, Formula E, MotoGP, all the sports now, they all seem to be going behind a paywall. That's a different project altogether. But the fact that in the practice sessions, I've even argued that we shouldn't be having ad breaks at all. No ad breaks during a live session for something that you pay for. And even on Discovery Plus, the ad breaks are still there in the session. I went back because I wanted to check. And it was like, oh no, the ad breaks are still there. It's literally just the TV coverage plopped on. It annoyed me so much. And one thing I found quite interesting was that in the first practice session, in that red flag, the first one, there was no information on the timing race control chat that we all see, because I know you guys see it as well. I was up in the commentary box doing the session on the watch along, and I was looking, and there was no restart time. I was like, well, what's going on here then? TNT Sport goes to an ad break, and it's like a 5-minute ad break. They come back 30 seconds later. Oh, we're green. No race controllers. I was honestly thinking to myself, has somebody communicated there that they're coming back? Don't restart the session until the viewers are back, because it was very weird how that happened. It was like, usually we get a restart time, and we never did. And I don't know, the practice adverts really, really are bad. The qualifying ones, I can understand if it's a natural break. But I agree with you, Pika. They did a great job in the race with the bumpers and in the pre-segment. And then the race, thankfully, was advert-free. And even during the safety car, we didn't throw to one like Eurosport used to. So it's getting slowly okay. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that front, on the TV front. And arguably as well, you know, I mean, I've been a bit cheeky, but the watch along that has been officially endorsed by Formula E, I'm very tempted to send my version along and say, you've got this, and then this is what it could be. And it's like, it frustrates me so much that they're not advertising the people who actually care about the sport. And it's like, what you guys are doing tonight, I've loved every single second of it. I love as well your graphics on the screen I'm looking at now above. It's fantastic. So it's people like us who do these shows and love the sport. We need to work with Formula E, not random sim racers who put like half the effort in and at one point didn't even know that there was cars on the track. Yeah. So it's annoying.
Does anyone else remember that thing that they tried for like 5 races with KSI? Yeah, that's it. That's it. You remember that? Oh,
yeah. Well, let's not.
That was fun.
Let's not get back into voltage, shall we? Let's not go back there. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And thank you so much for the kind words as well. And also make sure, I think it's JB Motorsports on YouTube. Go check him out if you, for whatever reason, want to watch the live shows or some of your previews and reviews that you do. Definitely go check him out. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. See you all soon. Hopefully be working with you again shortly.
Yep. Thank you very much. There we go. Going well, Pico. Going well. We've got another caller in chat.
Yes, we do. We're going to bring
Eric in.
We're going to bring Eric in.
Eric, he's muted at the moment. Fingers crossed he unmutes himself. But Eric, you are live to the FE bar. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. What did you make of the race?
I think it was quite great actually. I would imagine Zero would be much better because there'll be more overtaking. I still expect Porsche and Jaguar to be up there in qualifying, and maybe Envision and Andretti too. Who I was most surprised about was probably Gunter and Hughes. I was expecting them to fall down the order a bit towards the end of the race.
Yeah. No. It's weird that we say we're surprised by Gunther and Hughes because Gunther, maybe less so Hughes, because Hughes had such a great season at the start, especially at the start of last season when his rookie season. He's done really well and he was quick in practice. Do you think out of those two, the Nissan powertrain and the DS powertrain, which one do you expect or do you think will be the closest competition to the likes of Jaguar and Porsche?
From Mexico, I would probably say DS. Because Gunter was up there, and I would, because of his strong second part of the season in season 9, definitely in the second half, I would imagine him to be getting lots of race wins.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Lots of race wins.
That is music to Jack's ears.
Yeah, I know. The person, I predicted him to be world champion last season. It didn't work out. So now it's like an in-joke at FEZ that I have to pick Maximilian Günther every year until he wins a championship. But, so... let's talk DS then. In terms of your thing, the DS powertrain, you think Gunther could win some races. What about Vernon Van Dorn? Because I've been a bit shocked by them.
I forgot about all of them.
Yeah. What about Vernon Van Dorn?
Yeah, both of them are very consistent, as we saw in season 8, and Vern's a 2-time champion. If we saw lots of repeats of what happened in Hyderabad last year, I would expect them to be a big contender for the constructors.
Interesting. Yeah, if they could get it right, everyone goes right. And this is a really interesting question to you, Eric. Like, what is the best driver lineup? Because you've got people go, oh yeah, Nick Cassidy, Mitch Evans at this precise moment. Oh yeah, that's the best driver lineup. But then you've got Jean-Eric Vernon and Stoffel Van Dorn. You've got a double champion and a champion. But yes, maybe Van Dorn, for me, over the last 2 seasons, or since he's moved to DS, hasn't been that consistent. But for you, what's the best driver lineup? What driver lineup do you go, yeah, that's the best on the grid?
quite difficult to say. I think we'll get a better picture of it further into the season. You're right. It's between Jaguar and DS. Maybe I'm forgetting someone else, another lineup. But
Frines and Buemi?
we'll just see how it goes. Frines and Buemi. Not too sure about that one, but because they were lacking consistency towards the second half of the season, I think. Even though they won the constructors.
Wehrlein
Wehrlein
is a solid lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to talk about Da Costa later, because for me, Da Costa, at the moment, I don't know what's going on with him at Porsche. But yeah, so Gunther to potentially win some races. What did you make of? I'm interested, Jehan Daruvla. I want to get your opinion on Jehan. I know it's only one race, but did he set the world alight? Do you think he can improve and be a good Formula E driver? Or, because I don't think now you've got time to develop in Formula E, because we look. I know Andre Laura was in the series for last year's season, but that cost Andretti a chance at the team's championship. I don't think you can have a driver lagging behind. And if Jehan Daruvla, let's say by Misano, is still lagging behind, that can't. You've got to be thinking of moving him on, surely, rather than keeping him on for another season.
Yeah, I agree. The bar for the rookies was set very high last season with Fennestraff and Hughes, and they both got pole positions very early in the season. So, I think it would be beneficial for him to get points interior, or just as soon as possible, so he can prove that he can stay there for quite a few seasons and not get his seat under pressure.
I will say on this, if we remember back to season 7. Jake Dennis didn't really do anything for the first 4 or 5 rounds of the season, and it was only when we got to Valencia Day 2 that it went really, really well for him, and he went on to get pole position and the win. But before that, I think he got points on the day beforehand because of the whole shenanigans of what was Valencia race 1. But before that, I think he'd qualified maybe tops 15th, and then had some average races, nothing like a championship contender. Valencia happened and boom, and went off and challenged for the title that year.
But I think the thing about season 7 is that pretty much everyone was inconsistent in that season, so you could turn your season around very, very quickly. With season 9, there were at least 5 drivers who were consistent throughout, so it was really hard to catch them. So if you had a poor first half of the season, then you were saying that Gunther probably scored the most points out of anyone in the second half of the season last year. So he didn't reach he was only 6th by the end of the championship. So I'm not too sure that can be repeated.
Okay, Eric, who's your favourite driver at the moment? Who's your favourite driver?
Nico Müller.
Nico, right. Have you got a football song for Nico Müller?
Oh,
come on.
God, he's gone back to this.
Is there a song?
Unfortunately not.
Come on, you should have thought about this, because I was going to ask someone.
No. You don't need to ask anyone.
What could Nico Muller's entrance song be? Could you do it? Muller's on fire. Muller's on fireworks though. Muller's on fireworks.
I mean, this is going to be the Eurovision coming out of me, but May Muller's Eurovision song.
But let's talk about Müller though, because bit unlucky, right? Bit unlucky with the collision with Da Costa, by the way. Again, Da Costa. We're talking about him being the best driver lineup at the moment with Wehrlein, maybe on paper, but I don't think form at the moment for me. But Müller, at the moment in that act, I think he's doing bits.
Yeah, so when he rejoined Formula E, the first few races, he was kind of nowhere, but he was consistently scoring points in Rome and London, and in the qualifying in Mexico, he managed to was 6th in Group B, so he was close to the points already as he started. I would imagine he wouldn't have, if he didn't have the collision, he still wouldn't have scored points. But in the race where there would be lots of DNFs, he would definitely be up there.
I will say last season, Müller was, in my opinion, the best Mahindra-powered driver over the course of the season. Yes, Di Grassi had that great showing in Mexico, but after that, it sort of fell off a cliff. Roland dipped halfway through the year, and Frines obviously had the broken hand, and so we had Kelvin van der Linde and Roberto Meri. So honestly, by far and away, Nico Müller was the best Mahindra-powered driver last year.
And he's been a good driver for a long time, because even when he was with the app team, when it was Audi essentially, and he did those couple of races, he looked strong there. Do you think? Well, the problem is for him, he's probably not going to move teams because of the app, Eric. He's not going to move teams because of this app relationship. So, what do you want from apps? They're probably moving away from Mahindra. Do you want them to do the Cupra entry and be their own sort of brand, or do you want them to try and stay a customer team effectively for him, get a better powertrain, and see if he can move forward?
Maybe they should leave Mahindra. I think they should.
This is what we're hearing. Yeah.
Because of what happened in Cape Town last year, that's probably been the key to their struggles, like for the whole season. So, and I would imagine if they stay for season 11, season 12, they will still have the same problems. They will still be towards the end of the midfield. They need to change something in order to reach the front.
We did hear over the weekend there is a strong possibility that Abt and Mahindra have mutually going to part ways at the end of season 10, whether they're going to look for another manufacturer as a customer or whether they go all in on Cupra, which was the big rumor. That's why Cupra are the main sponsor. We're expecting Cupra to come in. That may not be Gen 3 Evo, that may be Gen 4, but we'll see what happens with that. But
Eric, what do you make on the 2-year cycle? Because obviously that has affected Abt in a way, because obviously the Mahindra powertrain, and same with ERT, wasn't very good, but you've had to watch Nico Muller battle at the back of the grid for 2 years. Does that frustrate you as a fan, or would you prefer them to just have a new powertrain or new hardware every year?
It doesn't. Well, last season didn't really frustrate me because he clearly made a lot of progress throughout the season. He was going from, I don't know, P19 or a lot of DNFs at the first half of season 9 to getting consistent points like P8, P10, P6 in Rome. So yeah, maybe they do need to make a change in order for them to get wins. Yeah.
So you're not too bothered by it. So you're happy for it to stay.
Yeah.
The 2-year cycle. Fair enough. Well, Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. So, moving on. We're going to take a break in a moment. But I think the first hour of the FE bar, should we call it a success? I think you've got a drink. I've noticed this.
It's a bar, of course. I'm going to have a drink.
Well, that's the whole point.
If anyone says, let's go to a bar, no one. Of course, I'm going to go, yeah, let's have a drink. I'm not going to show which one it is. Just, there we go.
Yeah. But
no product placement.
No product placement, yeah. We're not being advertised yet. Maybe one day. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take just a small break until just past 9 o'clock, and then we're going to bring in Nick Golding from Motorsport Week. Great journalist, absolutely brilliant, and he's going to tell us all the latest news, everything that's been going on in the world of Formula E, and keep you all up to date. So we will see you very soon. And we are back, and we're joined by Motorsport Week editor Nick Golding. Nick, how are you?
Evening, boys. I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's going all right. We're a bit hot, a bit sweaty underneath all these lights and camera action and all this talking that we've been doing. But it's great to have you on.
Thank you.
What did you make of the race in Mexico?
Well, it was Mexico. It was. Look, let's be honest. It wasn't brilliant. For me, it was. I've rated all the races from Gen 3 so far, and for me, it was the lowest rating. So it's a good way to start season 10.
Worse than Portland.
The thing with Portland is, I despised Portland, but it had something about it because you didn't quite know what was going to happen, because it was so ridiculous seeing 7 cars side by side into turn 1. You know, that memory will never go from my brain. It's
I think I'd agree with you. I'd agree with you on that.
I'll be honest. It went from my brain a bit because I fell asleep during that because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So
it was as well. That's a very good point.
I gave up.
I don't know if we're looking forward to a double header this season, but never mind.
Just make it earlier. I mean, like, they made Mexico 2 p.m. Make Portland 2 p.m. instead.
Well, you say, I mean, it was 2 p.m. Still to wait 4 hours for a result. But no, I think with Mexico, it's in a weird way. Yes, it was disappointing. Yes, it would have been nice to have seen some more action, but there are still some really interesting storylines that have come out of it, and that's something which we can, use looking ahead to Diria and then, to the 7-week break to Sao Paulo. But anyways.
Yeah, what were some of the interesting talking points then that you think came out of this race?
Well, I'm still not sold completely on Porsche. Don't get me wrong, Wehrlein was phenomenal. I'll be honest, in my predictor, I didn't think he'd make the duels. I was half expecting actually Da Costa to make the duels and him not to. But actually, the fact is, he was the only Porsche-powered driver in the top 12. Normally last season, the same was said for Dennis. The fact it was Pascal who did that says a lot about him, actually. He's obviously had a very good off-season. He's full of confidence. And, he managed to race perfectly. As soon as Buemi made a little mistake, Wehrlein saw his opportunity and went for it and built the 1.5 second gap, which really in Formula E nowadays, that's all you need. As soon as you've got that gap, you can manage your pace and the energy management. So that was kind of then game over for everybody else. And, okay, yes, Dennis would have been in the duels had he not made the mistake at turn 5, but, he only made up 5 places and that was all on the first lap. So even he struggled to get through because, as somebody mentioned earlier, DS looked quite good. And that was one of the biggest surprises coming out of it, is no one really knew what they were going to be like. And actually, the power, the Stellantis powertrain overall, they found something. They've absolutely found something in the software. I don't know what exactly it is. I'll hopefully find out more in Diria because I am thankfully going out there. But yeah, they found something. If they can keep performing now across the season, it's so easy to say, oh, they're now going to be title contenders. It's been one race. If they, though, keep this up across both races and Diria, then, they will catch the attention of the Jaguar-powered teams, the Porsche-powered teams, because you don't want Vern or Van Dorn being in that title fight, because on their good days, they are so consistent.
Yeah, for sure. For 100%, they're so consistent. I want to talk about Da Costa because I've been itching to talk about Da Costa in this show. Right, you said that you weren't sold on Porsche, right at the beginning. And,
no.
Okay, Wehrlein, we know about his inconsistencies and we were wanting to talk about whether or not he is a title contender. Can he be? Because he started great and obviously won both races last season in Diria, but then faded. Right, Da Costa I thought was nowhere last season apart from that amazing move in Cape Town. Not much to write home about. And then he starts this season. Wehrlein's on pole. He is nowhere, which can happen in Formula E. But I suppose if Wehrlein's getting into the duels, he should be getting into the duels. And then he goes for a move on Muller and just completely takes him out. I don't know. I don't know if Da Costa's got that same pizzazz about him that he did a couple of seasons ago.
I think with Da Costa, it's really hard to say because I think last season he does need to be given a bit of the benefit of the doubt because it was not only a new generation of car for everybody, he also had to get used to a very different team, a very different setup. Nobody runs a team quite like Porsche. They are engineered to win. And when they don't win, as Da Costa found out last season, things turn sour very quickly. And they obviously believe in him because they've made him drop his WEC drive for this season. So, they obviously believe in him. But in a way, this has actually put more pressure on him because, if he doesn't perform in Formula E this year, having been asked to drop a seat elsewhere and a good seat as well, where does that leave him? There's no doubting he is one of the best drivers on the grid. I still think, had he qualified in duels, well, just in general, when he makes the duels or when he qualifies towards the top, he's a contender to win because he's a race driver. He's not a qualifying driver. And we saw actually in Monaco last year, Pascal struggled to make progress, whereas actually Da Costa did really, really well until he obviously got, I think it was the puncture he got.
Yes.
So it was a weird case of he qualified badly. It was as simple as that. And this is why I'm not sold on Porsche, because their big thing over the off-season in pre-season testing was they have to find some progress over one lap, because especially in places like Mexico, qualifying is vital. If you don't qualify well in Mexico, you are not going to challenge for the podium. And unfortunately, this was the case for him, for Jake Dennis, for Norman Nater, who actually I was quite impressed with, to give him some credit. It's now good, really, with Wehrlein winning, Da Costa's got to turn up in Diriyah. He can't now afford to make another silly mistake because his move on Muller was so late. I actually read something. I think he spoke to Formula E Notebook, and basically, I think something happened on the lap before with Nico, which I think might have annoyed him a little bit. But nevertheless, it was that wasn't the move of a Formula E champion. It was late at a corner, which was never going to work when offline. I don't know what they've had done at the circuit over the last few months. It was so dusty. I've not seen, that circuit that dusty, at least for Formula E, I think possibly ever. Which is why you mentioned, Jack, earlier on, the lap times between the 300 kilowatt and the 350, there was literally no difference, which is unheard of. It was almost, I think it was okay, yes, we had less power this year, but the lap times were slower than last year. Even with less power, the amount of experience they've now got with the cars, we should have been quicker than last year and we weren't. So with Da Costa, it's now a case of he's got to brush himself down, get up again, because Diriyah is next weekend, and if he goes badly in Diriyah, he's then got 7 weeks to have to think about it, which for him is the worst thing. He needs a good result in Saudi Arabia, because otherwise the rounds then come thick and fast.
But you said he's not a qualifying driver, right? So if he's not a qualifying driver, I feel like in Formula E, you need to be a qualifying driver because it's so intense, right? You've got to get into that top four, right, in the group stages, and then you've got to perform in the duels. And if we're saying he's not the best qualifying driver, he's an amazing race driver, and I don't doubt that for 1 second, then all of a sudden, Formula E becomes quite a difficult series for him.
I think you've just kind of hit the nail on the head, but in general, Formula E is a difficult series. Yeah. There is nothing like it. We've seen this. Formula One is the proclaimed pinnacle of motorsport, of single-seater motorsport, whatever you want to call it. Yet, majority of the time, when an F1 driver comes over to Formula E, we saw it with Giovinazzi, they struggle. They really, really struggle. And actually, I don't really want to say this because some of the stuff that's been said about him has actually annoyed me. Nick de Vries, okay, he's technically the first Formula E world champion. He obviously left the series for a year to go and do his 10 races for AlphaTauri. He's come back, and I think too many people expected him to get not necessarily in the points because the Mahindra powertrain just isn't that good, but be more competitive. But actually, it's going to take him time. He's not a rookie as such, but he's not. Yes, he's done some testing in the Gen 3 machinery before he left. He's as much of a newbie almost in regards to the Gen 3 machinery as Deruvla.
But also, like, he didn't get as much testing as he wanted to because obviously the fire in Valencia, they missed out by not having one car, and then by the time they took their car to do the extra testing that they missed out on, it absolutely chucked it down, and it was basically a washout. So
They lost pretty much the entire
really a
time.
rookie. Yeah.
And that's the thing, and this is now for him the massive problem with the calendar is that you've got especially with De Vries and Arugula. Okay, so we've had Mexico, which all right, let's say that's a bit of a test for them. I don't think anybody really expected much from De Vries in his first weekend, because it's such a hard sport. But you've now got 2 races in Diriyah to try and make some more progress, because after that, you're not going to get any real driving as such, at least in a competitive environment for 7 weeks. That's a long time for a racing driver to not be racing.
Yeah. No, it is, and it'll be really interesting to see how Da Costa recovers, because obviously he's got the machinery to recover. He's got a chance to win the championship, very similar to like Sebastian Buemi, for example, who had that year to develop, kind of get used to the Envision, and now this season he's like, this is my year, and it was a great start for him. Were you surprised that he heard the penalty call, the under investigation call, and in the press conference he said that he didn't try to overtake Pascal Wehrlein because he thought he could potentially win the race afterwards?
First things first with Buemi, in the car with DC on the way to the podium, he had no clue that he was on camera, by the way. I'm sorry, there was not a chance that he knew he was on camera, because I think Nick clicked he was on camera because he was watching his language, and all of a sudden Seb swears about 50 times. To be completely honest, I don't think he had the pace to win. I don't necessarily think he expected to be where he was in general, to be completely honest. I, for one, kind of expected, at least in the duels for the final, to be Mitch and Nick. When you look at free practice, that's the way it was looking. The fact that they then both lost their semi-finals, and it was like, oh, okay, we've got Pascal and Seb in the final. I didn't even think Pascal would get to the duels full stop, let alone win it.
Yeah.
So I certainly wasn't backing Pascal for pole. I was saying it's Buemi, because Buemi's a pole merchant. I mean, I thought it was Buemi all over, and with the J powertrain it was looking. So I think it puts Pascal's performance into even a better light.
So I'm actually really intrigued. I'm talking to Pascal tomorrow, actually, and I'm really intrigued. I want to actually ask him about if he was surprised to be on pole, not just in the pole, but in the duels. Because, really in Gen 3, Pascal's not a qualifying driver. Apart from none of the Porsche power drivers are. But anyway, back to Buemi.
I will say, don't mention that tomorrow. Don't mention that you didn't put him in the duels in your predictions. I don't think that would be a great place.
I think most people already did.
Yeah, I don't think I would have.
Yeah, sorry, Pascal, I didn't put you in my predictions, but anyway, to be honest, Buemi's a brilliant qualifier, and actually, it's really nice seeing him back towards the front, because if he can string some results together, he could be a dark horse. There's so many drivers you can put that label on, dark horse, to the point we have about 20 of them out of 22 drivers. But I don't buy the thing of him thinking, oh, no, I won't go for Pascal, he's under investigation, because, that's such a risk to take. Are you telling me that Season 2 formerly champion Sebastian Buemi decided not to try and go for victory and play it safe? I'm not buying that.
Yeah, well, that's what he told the world.
For those who have seen, Formula E since day one, you will know that's not the kind of driver he is. He's a brilliant guy, actually. He's really fun to talk to.
I love talking to him.
He's a winner, and and that's one of the main reasons why he left Nissan, because he was tired of not winning. And I'll tell you what, last season as well, watching Nick doing what he did will have driven him absolutely mad. And actually, it's nice seeing him now, because there's an interesting dynamic between him and Robin, because one of them have got to step up. Because really, unless one of them steps up, Envision stand no chance at defending their title.
Yeah.
The fact Seb's already got on a podium in the first race, is he the one to replace Nick?
Potentially, but I think Robin's that dark horse too, to be honest with you. I know he crashed, but he's quick, but he's just got to if he gets that crashing out of the way, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fighting for podiums, because he's another one. He's Dutch, isn't he? So he reminds me of Max Verstappen in a way where he'll go for it.
I think Robin needs to just stop going to Mexico, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Because I think it's either he doesn't like the country or the country doesn't like him. Because now that's 2 years in a row where it was even the crash though. It was a really weird one because I'm not convinced there was contact with Edo. It was he tried to overtake him, but then put himself offline, and it's simply a case of he's carried too much speed offline. It was, as mentioned earlier, it was so dusty. It was so there was one line, and that was one of the main reasons why there was next to no overtaking. Because if you go offline, the moment you hit the brakes, you're not going to make the corner. And if you don't make the corner, it means the guy you're overtaking is also not going to make the corner. And then we get London traffic jam volume 2.
Yeah. And there was no...
I will say, we were on about earlier the best Formula E driver lineups this season. I'm going to say, I'd say Robin and Seb are the most equal this season. I think they...
100%. 100%.
They are going to be fighting each other tooth and nail over the course of this season.
Yeah,
and it's going to be really fun to watch.
Buemi's already, but consistency is key in Formula E, and everyone knows that. And already with Buemi getting those 18 points, he's 18 points ahead of Robin already, and I think that could be huge.
That's massive, and like we said as well, I've said this so many times, so I think people don't perhaps realise how important this is. There is a 7-week break between Diriyah and Sao Paulo. Whichever teammate, if Seb goes into the break with, let's say, a 30-point advantage over Robin, that's a massive deal. And that's 7 weeks for Robin to have to think about that and think about how far he is behind. And this is the one thing with Formula One. There are so many rounds. The drivers don't really get a lot of time to think about, the positions in the championship, what's going on, because it's, race after race after race. Formula E has kind of become a little bit more similar to that, especially last season, because the races did come. The season 9 came and went in a flash. This season's not going to happen like that because we've now got this huge break, and then we've got some massive breaks end of the season as well.
One thing that I will say is is last season when I spoke to Nick Cassidy after London, because obviously he had that heartbreak on the Saturday but won on the Sunday. I asked him if the results had been the other way around, if he'd won on the Saturday, kept himself in title contention but lost it on the Sunday, would it been worse? And he says absolutely. It's all about your last results. It's not about your form. If you've got a long break afterwards, you're going to be thinking about that last result, and that's what people will be doing from Saturday evening in Diriyah all the way up until the 15th of March.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not even just in motorsport. That's in life. If for example you're at work and you've got a week holiday coming up, but on your last day you make a massive mistake. And it's you're gonna go. You're then thinking for your whole holiday. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back to that. What am I gonna do? If you've got time to think, it is not your friend. Yeah. That was a really bad. I don't know.
No, it was a great analogy. It was a lovely analogy. But Nick,
being late.
Yeah, last thing to talk about before we let you go. Just any predictions for Diriyah? Do you think Diriyah? How different will Diriyah be? And you'll be there.
I will be there. Very much looking forward to it again back in the paddock. Diriyah is going to be interesting because Pascal has recent form there. We know Jake also goes well there. If the Porsches dominate, that's not good news for Jaguar. Jaguar, they were good. They were good in Mexico. Don't get me wrong. And I think that actually, had it not been for the one-place grid penalties, I think at least Nick from third would have probably then been more of a threat to Pascal. But if Pascal goes and wins both races in Diriyah, in many ways, he can then afford to have, a blip for a few rounds because he's going to have such a lead. Because Buemi's probably not going to finish second in both races. It means we're going to have some different names on the podium for this year. If Pascal goes into Sao Paulo with, 75 points at least to his name, all of a sudden it's, right, okay, that puts more pressure on the others to catch him than actually on him, which will probably suit him quite well because the problem last season was, yes, okay, Pascal won 2 of the first 3 races and also finished second in Mexico. Jake was still right behind him because those two were so close, and that meant that Pascal had to keep performing. He couldn't, when he did then took his foot off the gas, he struggled. Whereas now he can actually take his foot off the gas a little bit if he does well in Diriyah because he's going to have a buffer. Because at the moment, Jake needs a big weekend. because Mexico
Didn't work out.
for a reigning world champion, it weren't good enough. Andretti needs to do a bit of self-finding, because actually, NATO was pretty much with Dennis all weekend, and I was massively impressed with that. I think that's gone so under the radar. You finished one place behind him despite having to get used to an entirely new powertrain. That's such a big deal.
Yeah,
so,
Norman Nato is very much underrated. I think I definitely want to speak to him soon and try and sort something out for him, because he's doing a great job.
Well, definitely, and this thing, there are now going to be so many, despite how lackluster Mexico City was, and that's, I think, the most polite way I can say that, because are we before the watershed?
No swearing.
I'm not. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm swearing. I'm being polite. I'm following
Big
orders.
brother rules. Big brother rules.
I'm following the orders. Don't worry. I don't want to upset that incredible white jacket.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's gonna happen with that white jacket.
I'm not the one in charge.
Pico to host the 2024 FIA Gala.
Yeah, there you go. He's got everything.
Get me in.
He's got everything sorted. So the most important thing, though, to ask you, Nick, before we let you go. So what football chant for a FE drive have you got? What are you taking to Diriyah?
I haven't got a football chant. However, I was thinking about the song. Now, I haven't got a song exactly. However, I have got. If you think of Euphoria, any Eurovision fans out there, Pico, I'm looking at you. Okay, so take out the word Euphoria.
Yep.
And you can change it for Stoffel Van Dorn.
Okay.
Think about that for a second.
Peak, I need you to sing it because I don't know it.
I'm trying to work out how that works.
So instead of Euphoria, Stoffel Van Dorn.
Right.
Stoffel Van Dorn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. I was trying to work out how that works. Yeah.
We're doing this. We're starting a movement. Starting a movement. By London, we're going to have like MP3 players. We're going to be coming into the media centre with tunes for each driver, which will be then played out London, and you'll get that presenter doing that dance to whatever tunes we come up with.
I'm going to take some posters to Diriyah. I'm also taking a toy husky to take pictures with, which is really random, but Harold the Husky, I'm going to see how many drivers I can get to take a picture with.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'd be cool.
Awesome.
Be cool.
But honestly, everyone...
I would say Eurovision is the weekend of Berlin, so if you want to just, on like the Thursday, just get all the drivers, then get all the nationalities of the drivers that are in the contest and show them, and then they all vote. That's what we do in Berlin.
I was thinking you were going to say getting the drivers to come watch Eurovision with us. I can imagine.
Could you imagine?
Hughes and Da Costa being all over that.
Yeah, I can. I can as well.
And Dan Tixon probably slagging it off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No joke. He'll get into it.
It would be amazing. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. We've really enjoyed chatting. Nick Golding there from Motorsport Week. He will be in Diriyah. Go check him out. He's got his socials as well, which I think is pretty much Nick Golding's too on Twitter. Follow him. He did a great countdown. I couldn't believe how the days went past and then all of a sudden Mexico's here. So make sure you go give him a follow. An absolute amazing journalist, and really looking forward to seeing what coverage he does in Diriyah. So before we take our next break,
just before we go to the break, I will say that there's a comment in the chat from Saz who says, I'm going to laugh if Robin gets mysterious illness for all future Mexican E-Prix based on the last two results he's had in Mexico. Yeah, no, that wouldn't surprise me.
So what we're going to do is we're going to hear now. We want to talk to Attack Charge, because Attack Charge, right, didn't happen in Mexico. It's been delayed till Misano, and we're supposed to get some practice in Mexico, but it never happened, never materialized, which has got me worried, right? And I kind of said it at the beginning in the intro, that I called it a shambles, that Formula E have yet to get the whole point of Gen 3 up and running. So in Valencia, we spoke to Ian James, Roger Griffiths, we've got James Barkley and Florian Mondlinger. Easy for me to say. There we go. Easy for me to say. The German language, they're tripping me up. But
where's Toby?
Where's Toby? Right. We're gonna hear from Roger Griffiths and James Barkley first about why attack mode is being delayed and really stringently looked after. They really want to get it right. Have a listen.
You're right. We haven't done much testing on it. We're hopeful of doing some more this afternoon. We simulated, I guess, the movements of doing the attack charge this morning, just to get an understanding of the strategic element. Because I think what's possibly not that well known is there's many aspects to the attack charge which we have to tick the boxes on. There's the technology. Is it robust? Is it reliable? Is it going to function every single time? There's a sporting element. You know, how are the regulations going to work? Is it going to work well on a long track? Is it going to work well on a short track? What does it mean about where the leader comes out in amongst the pack and blue flags and that kind of thing? You know, what does it mean in terms of which order you pit the cars? And then there's the procedural side in terms of, you know, making sure that all the mechanics, the engineers, the drivers know what's going on. So there's a lot to be done. I would have to say that it's probably come a little later than we'd have been super comfortable with. You know, we will be guided by the FIA and Formula E as to what the right thing to do is. At this stage, we can present our perspective on how things are going. Obviously, the reliability side will be looked after between WAE and the FAA. The promoter, along with the FIA, will work on the sporting elements to that, and also how they promote it, and what does that mean. And we as race teams, you know, we'll do the best we can from the operational side. So there is a lot to learn. I think FIA, Formula E will make the right decisions as to whether or not it's introduced in Mexico. If you asked me today, I couldn't tell you. We don't know. You know, I think it's an exciting concept, and if we're able to demonstrate that fast charging has a relevance both for road cars and for racing, then that's a great thing to do. So I think there's a lot of unknowns, and too many unknowns for us to sit here today and say, is it going to be in Mexico for sure? I just don't know.
I think really to add is because of the incident earlier this week, we haven't really had the chance to validate, and I think from all of our perspectives and FIA and Formula E, we won't introduce technology until it's really ready. So I think if for any reason it is delayed, it's not a negative, it's just that we have to go through a proper procedure. We're a world championship, and you have to make sure things are fully validated before you introduce new elements. As Roger said, there's a lot to take into account, not just the technology, but making sure we're robust on the sporting side and everything else that goes with it. So yeah, the topic of fast charging, though, has an absolute relevance in this championship. And so I think, yeah, sadly, some of the time lost this week was important in terms of that validation. So if that means a slight change to timing, the relevancy of the topic, though, remains the same. So, but like all these things, we're a world championship, and the level at which we're operating as teams and manufacturers means that when we introduce something, it has to be ready.
So now we're going to hear from Ian James and Florian Modlinger. There we go, a bit better from me. And hear their thoughts on attack charge.
I think you mentioned a couple of really important things there. One is the sort of road relevance, and that's something which motorsport as a whole throughout the generations has been key to harness that, and I think that's no different for Formula E. And I think what we have here is an opportunity to, I suppose, enhance that connection through demonstrating how we can use fast charging. But at the same time, there's a sporting element to it as well, and we're very keen to ensure, together with Formula E, the FIA, teams and manufacturers, that whatever we do, whatever changes we make, that it actually enhances the sporting product. And for that reason, I think there's a lot of care that's been taken in ensuring that the format that we're talking about here, how it's integrated, is done in the right way. So at the moment, we're making sure that we're taking those steps to ensure that when it is introduced, it's introduced in the right way, to your point, that it's done in a positive manner. And I think it's crucial that we take the time to do that. So here in Valencia is the first opportunity that we've come together as teams and manufacturers en masse to be able to trial some of the new hardware and some of those new processes. We saw the pit stops this morning. I actually found it super interesting for the first time to see at least 21 cars out on track, and how that was all sort of managed and orchestrated. And I think, again, if it's done in the right way, that is going to be something that's going to add more excitement, more strategic elements into the overall sport, which is great. And now what we need to do is make sure that everything that's behind it is robust enough to I suppose get it rolled out in the right way, and that's why we're here, and we'll continue to support FEO and the FI and in making sure we're in the right place.
I only want to add one comment on this, because we clearly have to divide, as you said, the technical development, the technology itself, and the impact on the sporting product. Because what we had in season 9, the great racing, spectacular racing, interesting, exciting racing, and the technology road car relevant. When you look on the road cars, the quickest fast charger at the moment, which is state of the art, they go up to 300 kilowatt power. And these cars, they are developed for 600 kilowatt charging, and also during recuperation, regeneration, they can regenerate with up to 600 kilowatt.
Don't talk.
And this message is already there. The cars are developed and made for that. And now we have only to make sure that the integration into the sporting product goes in the correct and proper way, that this great sporting product stays at the minimum level what we have now and gets maybe another exciting element. But the clear message from the pure technology, these cars are made for 600 kilowatt fast charging.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about Attack Charge when we come back from this break. So we're going to talk Attack Charge, and then we'll wrap up the show with a look ahead towards Styria. But we still have time for potentially 1 or 2 more calls. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I want to get involved in the show, then just get involved in the show. Make sure you join the Discord, pop into the waiting room. We will drag you into the call, and you can get your chance to have your say on Formula E and maybe what you think on Attack Charge. Like, you know, we haven't seen it yet. Do you want to see it? How do you think it's going to work? What would you want to see? You know, is it going to become like F1 where we start talking about undercuts and overcuts? You know, what do you think Attack Charge can bring to Formula E? That's what we're looking forward to. So we'll give you a couple minutes. If you want to join the show, come join the waiting room, and we hopefully will be talking to you next. And we are back for the last little segment of the show. Again, if you want to come on, just join the waiting room and we will get you on before. But we really love, in the break there, Louis T's Gaming. We really love that comment there because it's really interesting actually. And it's kind of what we wanted to talk about. You said, wonder if attack charge there will change much strategy since everyone must do one pit stop. Would be interesting if it recharges so much that you could think about making an extra stop. I can't see that. There's something on my way. And just go full out. Yeah, for me, like, we were just discussing this on the break in terms of we don't know what the format is. We don't know exactly how long the race is, if anything changes with the races. In terms of, and in the interviews there with the team principals, they seemed like they were still, even though that was Valencia, and I still think this is going on, to be honest with you, is that they're still talking about the format and how it's going to be introduced and making sure that it's introduced correctly in the best sporting way to protect the product that they have, because they know that this product that they have is good at the moment. For me, when I envisaged attack charge, Pico, for me it was the races would be longer, right? And you'd have an hour or an hour and 15-minute race where, you know, you come and do a pit stop, you charge, get a good amount of charge, or depending on amount of how much charge you want, and then you go and you finish the race, and it is a bit more flat out, and it is a bit more. But then we've seen that flat out racing, a bit like Mexico, because I reckon Mexico, they were pretty much flat out, especially after the safety car. It looked that way. I didn't feel like there was much energy saving, that there isn't much overtaking once we get flat out racing. So I don't know if we want flat out racing in Formula E per se, but I do think it's interesting from those discussions there were obviously in Valencia, but none of you would have heard those interviews. To now where, how are they going to implement attack charge and do it in a way where fans understand and it's good for the sport?
Well, yeah, it's obviously it's still relatively unknown. That's why it still hasn't been introduced. I know that there are lots of drivers who say that they don't want it introduced until next season because it's not 100% perfect yet. But from what our understanding is that they're going to come in, they're going to stop for 30 seconds and charge up. And in that charge, they're going to charge up 4 kilowatts of power, which is in and around about 10% of what the races have been lately. Obviously, the battery goes up to something like 57 kilowatts of power, but realistically in the races, like they've only really been using about 40 kilowatts of power for last season. So it charges it up by 10%. It gives them 10% more to go further in the race. I think what I'd quite like to see, and I don't think this will be permitted, is the attack charge isn't mandatory. Because if you think about it, races like Portland last year, and because I think we would get some races a little bit like that, but I think it would change it substantially. If it wasn't mandatory, some people could come in for a stop, charge up, go back out again, but because the rest of the field are going quite slowly, they could catch up quite easily. A little bit like in Portland when Sasha Fenestras had to change his wing and then caught up everyone in about 4 laps time. It's not completely it's not completely decided how it's going to work yet. But the thing is, like I said in the FEZ show, I do feel like it needs to work sooner than later, because otherwise Gen 3 wasn't worth it.
Yeah, because that's the whole point, right? The whole point of Gen 3 was fast charging, and Modlinger said it in the thing, like it's there, 600 kilowatts of power is of rechargeable energy, and then in recharge and can charge at 600 kilowatts, and we've got state of the art, recharging facilities in where you can charge a Tesla or whatever electric car that you've got. That's currently at 300 kilowatts, and these cars are capable of charging at 600 kilowatts an hour. Therefore, we're not utilizing Gen 3, and we're going to Gen 3 3.5 Evo, and we haven't even touched on Gen 3 really, I feel. And I feel like we're just, in terms of attack charge, we're just missing out. Like we're not utilizing the car properly, I would say, Pico.
I just want to say before we have our first repeat caller, should we get him in?
Does Nick want to come back in?
Yeah, Nick wants to come back in. Come on, Nick.
We'll bring
Tell us
back Nick.
how wrong we are.
What's happening with attack charge, Nick?
Tell us how wrong we are. Come on.
Sorry, I'm like a pest now. I've had my time and put it back. Right, no, actually, no, it's actually quite interesting because you made a point Pico made about the time. When I was speaking to Jake Dennis just before the season started, basically they're kind of expecting the amount of time from when you enter the pits to when you leave the pits to be just over a minute.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking the 20 seconds you see in F1 at certain circuits, and that's including the pit stop itself. You know, this is you enter the pits, you stop, you get the booster if it's even working. You then leave, hopefully, without your car having gone up in flames. But the thing is,
like
though,
Kimi in Brazil in F1 when he left the pits, the car went in flames.
No, it is like the thing as well. I was saying that Jake told me is there's a big problem at the moment because it's not being very well specified what's going to happen in the regulations with regards to attack charge. There's a lot of unknowns, and this is one of the big problems now because Nick Cassidy, he's all for it being introduced during the season. Mitch Evans isn't. He thinks now, and this is, let's not forget, attack charge originally was meant to come in at the start of season 9. It then got delayed because the tech was nowhere near ready. They hoped it would be introduced halfway through season 9 and then thought, no, we'll stop. We'll do it start of season 10. Oh no, wait, season 10, we haven't got all the parts ready. Okay, we'll now try and do midway through season 10. If we're being honest, I don't think it's going to happen.
Is it a shambles though? Like, is that terrible? Because I remember speaking to Robin Fries of Valencia, right? And in no, without swearing, he basically sought your out, right? Like, he was like, I don't know why it's taken them so long to get it sorted, and surely for Formula E, considering that the whole point of Gen 3 was fast charging, and we haven't seen it yet. Surely then, if we get to Gen 3 and it's not introduced this season and goes to Gen 3.5, surely Gen 3 was a failure. Yes and
no. Because when you think about it, yes, okay, if it doesn't come in Gen 3 and it comes in Gen 3.5, you know, Season 9 still gave us one of the closest title fights that quite literally went to the final city being London. You know, so I don't think you can necessarily call it a failure because I don't think some people necessarily understand how much this tech has come on. You know, if you go on the Formula E website, you know, this is like a bit of homework now. Go and watch a race from season 1.
Nick sent us homework.
Look at the speed of the cars. Now go watch a race, either Mexico or go watch a race from season 9.
Yeah.
You know, Cape Town will be a great one. The sport in regards to the cars themselves and the technology and the science behind it all and the engineering, it has come on so much.
It is unreal.
This is our 10th season and we have made so much progress. Attack charge is kind of... It's the next big thing, but the big problem, and I think the big fear, and it's understandable, it can only be introduced when it is 110% ready.
Yep.
If it's 99% ready, it can't come in. You can't have it ultimately deciding the championship. Can you imagine? Because obviously it's meant to be used in London is the current plan. Obviously you're being used in Misano, can't remember all the venues, but one of them is London.
Yep.
Can you imagine last race of the season, the title goes down to it. Jake Dennis comes in for his attack charge on the verge of being a double Formula E World Champion, and the attack charge breaks. You know, it's that, and you know, Nick Cassidy wins the title, whatever. They can't let the technology alter the results. If that happens, the backlash could kill Formula E. It's as simple as that, really.
No, I agree.
In like a similar but strange point, isn't it a bit like how halfway through in 2021, Formula One announced they were going to do some sprints at Silverstone, Monza, and
Brazil? I don't know.
Brazil. Yeah, no, that was it. And that wasn't announced at the beginning of the year, and they announced it halfway through the year, and there were points on offer. Meant that we went down to the final race with both Lewis and Max level on points. So we won't talk about the end of that season. I do not have the energy to go into that. I cannot be bothered.
Evening, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, but isn't it a bit similar to that, or would it be something to say right, we're going to have this just double headers on the Sunday races from Misano onwards.
And this is what it's basically all the double headers from Misano onwards is the plan.
Yeah.
However, that's the big
I
problem now.
can't see that happening. If it's been cancelled already, I can't see it happening.
I'm all for it being tested in practice. I think that's a good idea. Obviously, things happened in Mexico, which meant that couldn't happen in free practice too. But I think get it practiced start using it in practice. That makes sense. Don't use it in the races yet until it's ready, because it's the views from the drivers. You've got, like I said, you've got Mitch. He's only wanting it if it's definitely ready. He'd rather it come in season 11 because it just makes more sense. New season, new regulations. Just
new car.
Exactly. Start from scratch. Nick's happy for it. But actually, and Nick made a really good point in that, what Formula E want to do is nothing like what is looking like it's going to happen in IndyCar, where they're changing their power unit after the Indy 500. They're going hybrid. It's he reckons that's a bigger change and has more, is more of a dangerous move than what Formula E wants to do. And then you've got Jake, who is a bit apprehensive, and his big thing, I saw somebody said in the comments about, will it be able to be done behind a safety car? Jake's big worry is, because it's so messy in the regulations currently, his worry is, let's say, for example, we're at Misano and, let's say Nick's leading the race. It's Nick leading the race from Jake, and Nick crashes. Okay, and it's the kind of crash where it's going to need a safety car. What could then happen is, let's say, for example, if it's Dan Ticktum at the back. I'm sorry, any Dan Ticktum fans. I'm only saying that because he was last in Mexico. Please don't come at me. But let's say Dan's in last. If ERT can see, okay, there's been a crash at the front, Dan can quickly come in, do his attack charge, rejoin the race, but then behind the safety car. But okay, everyone ahead of him still got to do it. When they come in to do it, Dan's going to be in the lead. And Jake's big problem is he doesn't want it to be a case of where teams will just time it for when there's going to be a safety car, and then you get the likes of ERT and Mahindra basically winning races from potluck. For me, it has to be done, I think, under green flag conditions. I don't see how it can happen under safety cars.
Yeah, I agree. It can't be done. It can't be done under full course yellow and safety car.
I'm not picking on you, Helen. Sorry. It's one of those things. It's going to be controversial, and again, Nick Cassidy kind of summed up really well. Whatever happens, no matter if they introduce it and it goes well, or if it goes badly, there is going to be criticism. Formula E cannot win no matter what they do. And that's, to be honest, that's right. And you can ask, as you mentioned, the drivers, you could ask 5 different drivers, and I can guarantee you now, they'll give you 5 different answers.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And even it's a good talking point, but it can't alter the result.
For me, when I got back into Formula E in 2014, at its inception, it was all about technology. It was all about the roadmap. It was all about. So when I look at the series, I see this as this is the series that's going to get me my first electric car, right? And it's going to be Formula E that is the reason why my electric car can charge quicker. It's the reason why my electric car will have higher range. So therefore, when I see a technological sort of improvement that I feel Formula E has to make, and it's something that they have to do and they have to get right, and if it's getting delayed, for me, as someone who was told by Alejandro Agag at the beginning of time that the whole point of this is to, develop electric road cars. I know. But it was to develop these cars, and then there's an opportunity here to really do something for road relevance, and it's missed. I think that would really frustrate me. I think that's what frustrates me.
Pico's dressed for the day one party.
Yeah. He was there. He was in Paris with that jacket. Met Alejandro Agag and was like, boom.
It was £3 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though.
Cost of living means that this is now about £2,000.
Yeah. Mate.
Perfect.
But to be fair, something you said there, Jack, because actually, Jake Dennis. Another thing you said was actually attack charge for Formula E. This is the next. It's the next thing. This is the next step in the in the development in the technology. This is it. It's just a case of, and to be honest, I think Formula E in a way are kind of their own worst enemy, because we've all been in the paddock enough times. We've seen that they're more than aware that the introduction of Gen 3 didn't go to plan.
Yeah.
It's you don't need to be a new fan to Formula E to perhaps recognise that not everything went to plan, not everything went as it should have done. Because of that, now the sport don't want to make a second mistake with the same era of car, because that could be fatal. That sounds very, very dramatic, and I apologise for that. But it's true. Formula E is, because of the way the sport is, I love Formula E so much.
Yep, we all do.
But unfortunately, it gets, it's trying to win a losing battle in many ways, because, there are so many people against it, and yet we're still this, small sport trying to grow, and we are growing. We're now got a bigger fan base than NASCAR, which is a mega thing to say.
Yes.
But you're always going to have the F1 haters, or the petrol haters, those who despise electric, EV technology.
Yep.
Formula E is trying to do all these incredible things, like the Gen Beta car that Jake Hughes broke the record in London. They're trying to do all these things to impress people, to show, look, we can do this. EV technology is capable of that. It's just because we're trying to do so much so soon, it's tripping over itself.
Yep.
We just need to. The sport needs to breathe, basically. In many ways. What's the saying about Rome? I always forget it.
It's not built in a day.
There you go. That's the one. It's getting late.
It's getting late. Right, what we're going to do, because we're getting towards the end of the show, and Joshua Birch has also sort of rejoined, and I'm going to add him to the conversation, if you can, Pico. And we'll end with, we'll hear Josh's thoughts, and then we'll start thinking about calling it a day. Josh, welcome back to the FE Bar.
Hello,
Hello, yes, we can hear you. What's your thoughts on attack charge?
That's why I came back in, because I was listening and you were all doing it really well. And I was thinking, it is like it's gone back to being a bit like Gen 1, where the racing is going to be disrupted for up to a minute. And one thing that we haven't said is that it's only one driver that can pit per team at one time. And like in the first Gen, when you could all come in and change cars and go back out again, if a safety car comes out, teams are going to have to be in a situation where you are sacrificing one driver over another over the race. So you're going to have teams favouring drivers, and you're going to have drivers that are second best going to be even more annoyed. And I do agree, it's very risky that they could get this wrong. And personally, I don't think we need it. I can understand the fast charging idea, but in my opinion, it shouldn't be during the races. I think this attack charge should only be if the safety car is deployed or the race is stopped. That way, it's a clear cut that nobody's disadvantaged. We get to recharge the cars and we get to go a bit longer. If you put it in the race at this time when it's not ready, there's too many issues that could come up with it. If it's under a safety car or a red flag, it's a bit more controlled and it's a bit more fair on everybody, because otherwise we could end up being really embarrassed. Because I think Formula E have tried very hard for everybody to forget Gen 1 and how they had to swap cars. Gen 2, in my opinion, was fantastic. We all got sick of it in the last season and we were just praying for the new cars. I must admit, I want Gen 2 back. But I think now, if they want to do this attack charge, it has to be in a controlled environment until, as you all say, it is 110% ready to go.
Well, I'd rather it go with when it's 100% ready to go, because I disagree that I think they need to do it. Like, for me, it's all about the showing what electric cars can do and showing that. But for me, the races have got to be longer. Like, you've got to charge it, it's got to work, and you've got to, even if it's an hour and 10 minutes or an hour, or an hour, every race is an hour, but you've got to do an attack charge at some point, and it allows you to go faster or something, right? However they want to do it. I think the technology, they have to. I think it's a must. It's a non-negotiable for me that they've got to implement it somehow, some way, and they've got to get it 100% right, obviously. But you're right in what you're saying. It can't be done on a whim. It has to be 100% solid. But you know, people are waiting around. I know 2030 in some countries, UK now 2035 seems a long time away. And I remember speaking to Sylvain Philippe. The technology will improve massively, but this is a step. This is a step that Formula E can say, we done this to get electric cars moving, to put that myth of, oh, I have to spend 45 minutes, an hour charging my car, to get that myth down. So actually you can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes charging a car. That's why I'm a bit passionate about it. It's because it has to be done, I think. We have to implement it somehow, Josh.
We absolutely do. And it's always one of my big things is that, especially in the early days of when we were seeing charging ports popping up around the UK as well, everyone was going like, oh, I'll just pop in and have a coffee and some biscuits and all that lot. We've got time to wait. And you were sitting there and you were seeing people filling up with diesel or petrol, and it was often about, what, minute 30 if you had to go in to pay, 45 seconds if you were paying at the pump. And it's things like that, which is like, we need to get to that level quickly. And you were talking, and it reminded me, I think it was the BMW safety car that Formula E first had.
Yes.
I think it was season 4, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
you talking
season
about
5?
the fast charging pads that it was underneath. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I am, yeah. It was in Hong Kong, I remember, in one of the practice sessions. They wheeled the safety car on and they showed it charging. I thought, that is brilliant. And then they were talking about how the next generation of Formula E would have similar technology and it would be able to be fast charged. And everyone thought, oh, this is fantastic news, brilliant. We'll have more pit stops in the races, but it'll actually be more relevant. And I think the execution hasn't been what they ideated it for. And personally, I don't know why they're having so much trouble when they've had, season 4 was 2017, the start. So it's a long time they've had to figure out this technology. And it's very experimental still. And it's what Formula E's for. I've always said Formula E may stand for Formula Electric, but my opinion stands for Formula Experiment. It's a giant leap into the unknown. And I do believe that we are getting to a stage where the companies are now focusing more on hydrogen, which isn't the case. In my opinion, it's hydrogen and electric which are the future. Because if you can get those two systems working together, it's fantastic. So I've got this feeling that we will see it in Mazzano. It's either going to be a failure or it's going to be a very exciting race. I do feel, however, that Mazzano is the wrong track to do it at, because I know why they're doing it, because it's purpose-built, but it's a purpose-built track. That's the point. It's a race circuit that is for racing, not Formula E. Formula E is a street racing circuit. It's designed to put you in the city centre. We're designed to race where normal cars can't go, and to show off this amazing technology that, look, you all thought it was impossible. You can have electric cars. So to debut it at a racetrack is kind of a kick in the teeth. Yeah. So I don't agree with all the racetracks that are going out anyway. I'd much rather have street tracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's another talking point for another referee bar, I reckon, and another conversation. But yeah, I think to bring the conversation to a close, it's interesting to see what they'll do in the future. I blame Alejandro Agag. And I tell you why I blame Alejandro Agag, because he was the one back in the press conferences, back in the day, back in that time around season 4, saying, yeah, in the future we'll just rip up all the roads, we'll put these wireless charging mats down, and then you can charge your car as you drive. How amazing would that be? And he's true, he's right in what he's saying, look, that's technology, but he's put all these kind of like, he's thrown out all this technology, everything that Formula E, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And then we're like, well, push comes to shove, it's time to do it, and it's not worked out. But boys,
where are the 150 cities, Alejandro?
Yeah, where are the 100?
Where are they?
Where are they that want to race? Where are they? Joshua,
we've had half of them.
Yeah, we're going through. We're running out of cities. There'll be no more cities left for us to go to. Yeah, but boys, Josh, I'm going to let Josh and Nick go first, but obviously thank you for popping back in, and we'll wrap up the show here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
But yeah, there you go. That is a FE Bar done done. The first one done. A massive thank you. I have to say, one to you, Pico, because you've had to sit for 2 hours and go through this. I have to say thank you to the chat, all the comments, everyone who's commented, everyone who said hi. Hello there, Leif. Right at the end, you've just missed us. But if you've not, join the Discord if you're not in the Discord. And then we'll be doing one after Diria. So in 2 weeks' time, on the Monday after Diria, what a double header to talk about. 29th. There you go. 29th. There you go.
29th. 8 p.m. UK time.
8 p.m. UK time. We will be back with another Effie Bar. It was your chance. We had, thanks to Josh, thanks to Nick, thanks to Chris, thanks to Eric, who came on the show, and it just shows we want to interact with you. We want this show to be where you can have your voice, where you can have your say on the series, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Because I was incredibly nervous before the show started, because I didn't know what was going to happen, because I've done live shows before, but like this one was a bit out of my control. It relies on you to turn up and chat for Maria about a series that we all love. So if you haven't taken the plunge tonight,
you know what you need, Jack, to get you a little bit of content. You need a white jacket.
You need a white jacket. I'll have to get a blazer out. I'll have to get a blazer out. But yeah, thank you once again. And I'm really looking forward. As I said, if you didn't take the plunge tonight to get on, we're not that scary. So please do. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get a bit more community engagement. We're going to do these for every race, and maybe we might sneak a couple in the 7-week break. But Pico, thanks so much for being with me.
No problem, mate. This was really fun, and I've just about finished my cider, so yeah, brilliant.
Happy days. We'll leave you there then. Have a great night, and we'll see you. We'll probably see you. Check the content on the Formula E zone. There'll probably be some snippets from the show come up, and on social media too. We'll still do an FEZ show, so there'll still be. We'll talk about it all over again at some point.
Not another one.
Not another one. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. We have been the FE Bar. This has been a Formula E Zone production for Formula E Zone, I suppose. And we'll see you soon. Goodbye.